what is the case that you would make to Americans who have these anxieties, have these doubts, to say to them that, you know what, this is something that is not only good for Israel, but what Israel has done is really good for the United States and perhaps even just good for the world?
Yeah, that's a great question, Dinesh, and it's super timely. I actually just wrote a column on Saturday, Tucker Trashes Trump. Is about Tucker Carlson, who, yes, I would put him in a different category. He's not Kanye West. He's not Candace Owens, okay? I've got serious concerns about how Tucker approaches foreign policy, but he's not an anti-Semite. I can't draw that conclusion based on the data that I see. But here's the question. Tucker Carlson is arguably the most influential person in Trump's orbit that hates the idea that Trump would stand with Israel in an Israeli attack on the Iranian nuclear and ballistic missile systems. And Trump and Tucker has trashed Trump publicly. And so yes, I'm a dual US Israeli citizen. So let me take my Israeli hat off for a moment. I've got 2 of my 4 sons have already served in the Israeli Defense Forces. And I've got my youngest is serving in the IDF right now. So I just want to put my cards on the table. Because Tucker took a shot at Mark Levine the other day, saying, "Mark, you've never served in the military. You're not going to go, and your kids aren't going to serve in the military if we have to go to war with Iran. So what are you talking about?" So I just want to be clear: my boys have served, and we are living in the eye of the storm right here. So we've got skin in the game. But let's take the Israeli hat off. The American hat. What's the American case? The American case is in November of 1979, Iran declared war on the United States of America. And it started a little bit earlier when the Ayatollah Khomeini came back from exile, first in Iraq, then in Paris, came back on February 1st, 1979, and whipped up crowds every Friday saying, "Death to America, death to Israel." So death to Israel is the secondary objective. Death to America is the central mission of the Islamic Republic of Iran. So Tucker doesn't seem to understand that. Now, it's not just rhetoric, okay? They declared war on the United States, and then they took our embassy, the American embassy, hostage, took Americans hostage, American diplomats, for 444 days, okay? Humiliating the United States. And nothing we did worked, and President Carter's effort to send in a military rescue didn't work, and it was a humiliating disaster. If that were the only moment, we'd say, okay, well, no Americans died in the embassy. It wasn't good, but But what happened then? Iran began funding terror organizations to kill Americans. I'm just going to pick a couple because we could go on and on. We could spend the whole next couple of hours. But, most dramatically, perhaps, when Iran funded Hezbollah, their terror arm in Lebanon, to attack the U.S. Marine barracks in Beirut, killing 241 Americans and humiliating President Reagan as Reagan pulled all U.S. forces out of Lebanon. That was a disaster. That was Iran. And if you say, well, we don't know it's really Iran. Yeah, a U.S. federal court did the case and awarded, I think it's north of $100 million to the victims because they proved in court that it was Iran. And so money that had been frozen of Iranian assets in the United States, $100 million plus was given to those American family victims. So that's one example. Another would be the Khobar Towers in Saudi Arabia, where American servicemen and civilians were living and defending the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, and Iran sent terrorists to blow them up. 19 Americans died, hundreds more were wounded. So those are just a few examples. We all know, because there's hard intelligence, that Iran was funding and encouraging and arming terror groups inside Iraq to attack Americans, American servicemen in Iraq during that war. So it goes on and on and on, and Iran has never paid a military price ever. Now, the closest it got was when President Trump in the previous term ripped up the Iran nuclear deal, which he said was the worst deal in history, right? Paved the way to a bomb, didn't stop it. And then Trump imposed the maximum pressure campaign of economic sanctions, which did drive Iranian foreign reserves down to only $5 billion. They were nearly bankrupt until Joe Biden came in and stopped enforcing the sanctions. And then they became rich, and then they began funding terror again. In what part of America First is allowing Iran for nearly a half a century to keep killing Americans and funding terrorist organizations that kill Americans and attack America's allies, faithful allies, good allies that are delivering, pulling their weight, paying their fair share, right? How is that not being pro-American and America First to support the end of that regime in Iran?
We are days away from what has been dubbed the Rio Reset, what may be the greatest threat to the U.S. dollar's global dominance in over 80 years. Now, on July 6th, BRICS nations, Russia, China, India, Iran, many more, are expected to unveil their plans to circumvent the U.S. dollar, possibly cratering its value. Now, they've already been laying the groundwork as their central banks have been methodically divesting from the U.S. dollar and U.S. bonds in favor of gold. So how can you protect your savings, your IRA, your 401k from the potential fallout from this meeting? Well, the answer is to consider diversifying with gold from Birch Gold Group. Historically, gold can be a safe haven in times of high uncertainty, which is right now. Get a free information kit on tax-sheltered gold IRAs by texting the word Dinesh to 989898. July 6th marks a major meeting among the nations that control 1/3 of the world's GDP. Arm yourself, like Debbie and I did, with information to diversify your retirement savings. Text Dinesh to the number 989898. Claim your free information kit from Birch Gold.